The Queen's Worry. The kingdom of Nora was a land blessed by the gods. Nestled between towering mountains and lush, emerald forest, the kingdom thrived under the rule of King Akin and his beloved Queen Isara. Nora was a place of prosperity, where the sun always seemed to shine just a little brighter, and the people lived in peace and harmony. The palace itself stood at the heart of the kingdom, a grand structure built from the finest stones, its golden rooftops glinting in the light of day. In the midst of this beauty, Queen Isara could not shake a growing unease that had settled in her heart. The source of her concern was her only daughter, Princess Adoma. Adoma had always been a radiant soul. From the moment she was born, she had captivated everyone with her beauty, grace, and wisdom beyond her years. Her laughter filled the halls of the palace, and her presence seemed to bring a sense of calm to the kingdom. But recently, something had changed. For the past few weeks, Isara had noticed odd changes in her daughter. It started with the dreams, unsettling and vivid, leaving Adoma tired and restless when she woke. She would often speak of visions of a mysterious figure, someone she couldn't quite see, but whose presence filled her with both comfort and fear. These dreams would leave Adoma in a state of joy and peace, though her eyes would remain distant, as if caught between two worlds. Isara had tried to inquire, but Adoma would merely smile and wave off her concerns, brushing them aside with a gentle laugh. "It's nothing, mother," she would say, her voice soft but firm. "Just strange dreams. I'll be fine." But Isara wasn't convinced. Her daughter, who had always been so grounded, now seemed to drift in a world that was beyond her reach. Adoma's once vibrant smile appeared faint, and her steps had become slower, more cautious. Isara watched from the shadows of the palace as her daughter wandered through the royal gardens, staring up at the full moon with an expression of longing. There was a deep sadness in her eyes that Isara could not ignore. The queen's heart ached as she pondered what was happening to her daughter. One night, as the moonlight poured through the windows of their chambers, Isara approached her husband, King Akin, with her worries. They sat together in the grand sitting room, the flickering light of the hearth casting long shadows on the walls. "My love," Isara began, her voice filled with a quiet tremor, "there is something not right with Adoma. I can feel it in my heart." King Akin, wise and patient as ever, took her hand and squeezed it gently. "Isara, she's just growing up. It's natural for young ones to go through phases. Perhaps this is just a passing thing." Isara shook her head, her gaze distant. "No, Akin. It is more than that. She is not just going through a phase. These dreams, these strange moods, there is something deeper at play here. I believe it is something spiritual." The king frowned slightly, his brow furrowing as he considered his wife's words. "Spiritual. Isara, you know that our ancestors watch over this kingdom. Perhaps the dreams are their way of guiding her." "I do not know," Isara replied softly. "I feel something more. Something I cannot explain." King Akin stood up and walked to the window, gazing out over the kingdom they had built together. The soft glow of the moon bathed the land in silver, and the stars above twinkled like the eyes of ancient gods. He took a deep breath before turning back to his wife. "We shall keep a close eye on her," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Adoma is strong, and whatever this is, she will overcome it. If there is something deeper at work, then it is something we will face together." Isara nodded, though a heavy weight still pressed upon her heart. She wanted to believe that her husband was right, that Adoma would simply grow out of whatever this was. But deep down, she knew that the mysterious happenings around her daughter were no mere passing phase. Something beyond their understanding was at play, and it would take more than time to unravel it. As the night stretched on and the stars twinkled in the sky, Isara prayed to the gods for guidance. Whatever was happening to Adoma, she would find a way to protect her. But in the silence of the moonlit night, the queen could not escape the feeling that the path ahead would be far more complicated than she could ever imagine. The meeting with the oracle. The sun had barely risen when Queen Isara made the difficult decision to seek help beyond the walls of the palace. Her heart weighed heavy with worry, and the peaceful kingdom she had once known now seemed to be surrounded by shadows she couldn't fully understand. For days, she had searched the halls of the palace for answers, but none had come. Adoma, despite her mother's persistent concerns, remained elusive and distant, as if lost to a world only she could see. There was only one place left to turn, an ancient woman who lived far beyond the borders of Nora, at the edge of the kingdom, in a forest whispered to be alive with spirits. The Oracle of the Forgotten Grove, as she was known, had lived for countless years, tending to the spirits and offering her wisdom to those brave enough to seek it. Stories of her powers were legend, and while many in Nora revered her, some feared her too. Queen Isara, however, was no stranger to the power of the unseen, and she believed that this ancient woman could hold the key to unraveling the mystery surrounding her daughter. As the queen made her way through the dense forest that bordered Nora's lands, she was accompanied by a few trusted guards. The journey was long, and the path was treacherous, winding through thick trees where sunlight barely touched the ground. The deeper they ventured, the more the air seemed to change, cooler, heavier, as if the very earth held its breath. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they arrived at a small clearing where an ancient stone hut stood. The air around it shimmered with an ethereal glow, and the sound of soft whispers seemed to come from all directions. The queen approached the hut with a sense of reverence, knowing that she was stepping into a realm where time and space were not the same. The door creaked open, revealing the oracle. She was an elderly woman, hunched and bent by age, yet her eyes gleamed with a fiery intensity. Her long, silver hair cascaded down her back like a river of light, and her presence radiated a power that made the air hum. "Oh, Queen Isara," the oracle's voice was soft but filled with authority. "I knew you would come. You are troubled." Isara, though taken aback by the oracle's words, stepped forward. "I need your help. My daughter, Adoma, has been acting strangely. She is having dreams, visions, I believe, and it is as if she is slipping away from me. I fear something is wrong, something beyond our understanding." The oracle studied her with piercing eyes, her gaze never wavering. She seemed to look through Isara, as if seeing not just her, but the very soul beneath her skin. "Your daughter carries a heavy burden," the oracle said, her voice low, "but it is a burden of the gods. She was born with a gift, a connection to a power much older than this kingdom, older than time itself." Isara's heart raced. "A gift? What do you mean? What kind of power?" The oracle gestured for Isara to sit, and she obeyed, feeling as though every movement she made was being watched by unseen eyes. The oracle began to speak, her voice growing steady and filled with ancient knowledge. "On the night your daughter was born, a celestial being, one of the stars themselves, gifted her with a powerful ring. It is no ordinary piece of jewelry. The ring connects Adoma to a spiritual presence, a husband not of flesh and blood, but of spirit. This husband is an ethereal being, a protector and a guide. He watches over her and has been with her since her first breath. It is he who has filled her heart with peace in moments of sadness, and it is he who will fulfill her deepest desires, not any earthly man." Isara blinked, trying to process the oracle's words. A spiritual husband. A celestial being. It sounded like the stuff of myths. And yet, looking into the oracle's eyes, she could tell that this woman spoke the truth. She could feel it in her bones. But how does she not know? Isara asked, her voice trembling. How can she have this connection and not realize it? The oracle's face softened, a hint of sorrow in her gaze. Your daughter is not fully aware of the power she holds. The ring's influence is subtle, like a whisper in the wind, and it grows stronger with each passing day. But until she understands the depth of her connection to this spiritual husband, she will not be able to harness its full power. She is still young, and the ring is waiting for her to embrace it. If she continues to resist, it may cause her great pain. Isara's mind spun. She had known that there was something extraordinary about her daughter, something beyond the ordinary scope of this world. But she had never imagined this. "What can I do?" she asked desperately. "How can I help her? I can see that this connection brings her joy, but also confusion. It's as if she's torn between two worlds. I don't want to lose her." The oracle gazed into the distance for a long moment before replying. "The ring will reveal itself to her when she is ready. But you, Queen Isara, must help her understand that her true fulfillment lies not in the earthly suitors who seek her hand, but in the power she holds within herself. She must come to terms with this connection, embrace it, and trust that her spiritual husband will lead her to the life she is meant to live." Isara's heart was heavy with the weight of the oracle's words. Could it really be true? Was her daughter destined to follow a path so different from the one she had imagined? The oracle stood, her movements graceful despite her age, and turned to a shelf lined with ancient scrolls. She took one and handed it to Isara. "This will guide you," she said simply. "It is a map, not of land, but of spirit. It will lead you to the answers you seek." Isara took the scroll, feeling its weight in her hands. She nodded to the oracle, gratitude and confusion swelling in her heart. "Thank you." The oracle smiled faintly. "The path ahead will not be easy, Queen Isara. But it is the only path that will lead to your daughter's true peace." As Isara left the oracle's hut and made her way back to the palace, the weight of what she had learned settled over her like a heavy cloak. Her daughter, Adoma, was not just the heir to the kingdom of Nura, she was destined for something far greater, something that would require her to confront the very essence of who she was. Isara had no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain: the road ahead would be filled with challenges, both earthly and spiritual. And no matter how difficult it became, she would walk it by her daughter's side. The suitors arrived. The kingdom of Nura, once at peace, now found itself under a shadow of looming threats. Neighboring kingdoms had begun to stir, and whispers of war filled the air. King Akin, ever the protector of his people, knew that the time had come for his daughter, Princess Adoma, to choose a husband who could not only share in the leadership of the kingdom but also defend it against any external threats. The king called a council in the royal hall, gathering the kingdom's most trusted generals and advisors. The air was thick with tension as the leaders debated the increasing danger from rival nations. Yet, despite the urgency of the situation, one question remained on everyone's minds: who would Adoma marry? "We cannot wait much longer," King Akin declared, his voice filled with concern. "The kingdom needs a strong ruler, one who can stand by Adoma's side and guide us through these uncertain times. She must choose a husband, and quickly." Queen Isara, though uneasy, nodded in agreement. She, too, knew the stakes. But unlike her husband, her mind was occupied with a different kind of worry. How could Adoma choose a suitor when her heart seemed so torn? How could she select a man when she was already connected to something or someone greater than any mortal? In the days that followed, suitors from all corners of the known world arrived in Nura. There were warriors with strong arms and swords that gleamed like the sun, their muscles rippling beneath battle-worn armor. There were wise scholars, their minds as sharp as the finest blades, ready to offer counsel and strategies for the kingdom's future. And then there were wealthy merchants and noblemen, each with vast riches and the promise of prosperity. Each suitor was presented to Adoma in the grand hall, where she sat with her parents, her grace and beauty making even the most powerful men fall to their knees in awe. But despite their best efforts, none of them captured her heart. The warriors were too focused on their strength, the scholars too absorbed in their own words, and the merchants too concerned with wealth. When Adoma politely rejected each suitor, it was done with kindness, but there was an undeniable sorrow in her eyes. She could not explain it, not even to herself. How could she choose a man when her thoughts were always consumed by the pull of something else, a presence that seemed to be both distant and intimately close, filling her dreams and quiet moments with a sense of longing? It was as though her heart knew no other answer but the one whispered to her in the silence of the night. The connection to the spiritual husband, as the oracle had spoken of, became more undeniable with each passing day. Adoma found herself increasingly distracted, her gaze often drifting to the moonlit sky, as if searching for the figure that had been present in her dreams. She spent long nights wandering the palace grounds, her footsteps silent on the soft grass as she searched for answers that eluded her. The stars above seemed to shimmer in response, as though they too were calling to her, urging her to listen to the quiet voice in her heart. Isara watched her daughter's growing withdrawal with growing concern. Adoma, once vibrant and filled with the joys of life, was now a shadow of herself, lost in a world that no one else could see. She had become distant, almost as if she were slipping through the very fabric of reality. One evening, as the last suitor of the day, an esteemed prince from a faraway land, took his leave after being gently turned away, Queen Isara found herself alone with Adoma in the palace gardens. The air was cool, and the scent of jasmine filled the air as they walked in silence, the soft rustling of the trees the only sound between them. "Adoma," Isara said softly, her voice trembling with concern. "Why do you refuse them? All of them are fine men, capable of protecting and leading our kingdom. You have a responsibility, my daughter. You are the heir to this kingdom. Your choice will shape Nora's future." Adoma stopped and looked at her mother, her eyes filled with confusion and sadness. "Mother, I cannot choose. They are all good men, yes, but my heart does not belong to any of them. It is not about their strength or their wealth. I don't know how to explain it, but there is something, or someone, I feel connected to." Isara felt her heart tighten, the weight of the oracle's words pressing down on her. She had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that her daughter would find her way back to the earthly world, that the pull of the spiritual presence might fade with time. But it seemed the opposite was happening. Adoma continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel his presence, mother. Every time I close my eyes, I see him. And when I wake, I long for him in a way I cannot understand. He is my true husband, but I do not know how to make sense of this. How can I choose a man when my heart belongs to someone I cannot touch, someone who is not of this world?" Isara's heart broke for her daughter. She had feared this, but hearing it from Adoma's lips made it all the more real. The queen took her daughter's hands in her own, trying to steady her trembling heart. "My dear," she said gently, "I know you are struggling. But you must understand that the kingdom cannot wait forever. The people are growing restless, and we cannot show weakness in times like this." Adoma lowered her gaze, her thoughts deep and her heart torn. She wanted to believe that there was a way to balance her duties to her kingdom and the mysterious connection she felt to the spiritual husband. But each time she rejected a suitor, she felt further adrift, caught between two worlds, the world of earthly responsibility and the world of the spiritual love that called to her. The queen squeezed her daughter's hands, trying to offer comfort, but the uncertainty that clouded the future could not be shaken. They both knew that something would have to give. The weight of their kingdom, and the fate of its future, rested on Adoma's decision. But how could she choose a man when the one she was meant for was not of this realm? The loss of the ring. The night was particularly still as Adoma wandered the palace grounds once again, her footsteps soft against the stone pathways. The moonlight bathed the world in a silvery glow, but even its beauty couldn't ease the deep sense of unease that had settled in her heart. She had become restless in the past few days, and tonight, it felt as if the pull of the spiritual husband, once so strong, had weakened. She longed for the connection she had always felt, but it seemed as if the distance between them was growing with each passing moment. Her fingers brushed the delicate chain around her neck, but the ring that had always been there, the link between her and the ethereal husband, was missing. Her heart skipped a beat. She quickly searched her neck, then her fingers, but there was nothing. Panic gripped her as she scanned the ground, her eyes frantically darting around the garden where she had been walking. The ring had to be somewhere, but it was nowhere to be found. She retraced her steps, moving faster, almost running as she searched beneath the tall trees and along the stone walkways. The night air felt colder than it ever had before, and the shadows around her seemed to stretch unnaturally, twisting as if alive. She called out for the ring, her voice trembling, but it was as if the very earth had swallowed it up. Her mind raced. Could it have fallen into the fountain? Was it lost in the grass? Could someone have taken it? Her thoughts became a blur as she searched tirelessly, not daring to stop for fear of losing the one thing that had always given her comfort, her sense of security. But no matter where she looked, the ring remained elusive. It was as if it had vanished completely, swallowed by the very darkness that now seemed to surround her. The once comforting presence of the spiritual husband, the one who had always been there to guide and protect her, felt distant, like a memory fading into the mist. As the hours passed, Adoma's frustration grew into a gnawing sense of fear. The shadows around her seemed to grow darker, their movements more ominous. She felt eyes watching her, following her every move. The connection she had once felt to the spiritual husband was slipping away, and with it, the sense of peace she had always known. As she wandered the garden in a daze, a strange sense of weakness overcame her. Her body felt heavy, her limbs like lead. Her breath came in shallow gasps, and a cold sweat broke out across her forehead. The vibrant energy that had always flowed through her seemed to drain, leaving her pale and exhausted. She stumbled back toward the palace, her heart pounding in her chest. It was as if the very life force within her was fading, and with it, the hope that she could ever find the ring again. The next morning, Queen Isora awoke to a terrible sight. Adoma was lying in her bed, her skin pale and clammy, her body shivering despite the warmth of the room. Her once bright eyes were dull, filled with an unshakable exhaustion. The queen's heart dropped as she rushed to her daughter's side, her hands trembling as she touched Adoma's forehead. The princess was burning with fever. Adoma. Isora called softly, shaking her daughter gently. What happened? Talk to me, my child. Adoma groaned softly, her eyes fluttering open, but she seemed disoriented, confused. Her voice was weak, barely a whisper. Mother. I can't. I've lost it. I've lost the ring, the connection. She broke into a coughing fit, her body racked with convulsions that left her gasping for air. Isora's heart sank as she held her daughter, tears threatening to fall. What do you mean, lost the ring? Where did you lose it? Adoma's eyes filled with fear as she tried to sit up. I don't know, it's gone. I can't feel him anymore. I've lost the ring, and with it, I've lost him, the one who protected me. As the queen listened to her daughter's frantic words, the realization hit her like a thunderclap. The spiritual influence that had shielded Adoma and, by extension, the kingdom, was fading. Without the ring, the connection to the spiritual husband was severed, leaving both Adoma and the kingdom vulnerable. Stay still, my child, Isora said, her voice trembling but firm. She reached for a nearby bell and summoned the royal healers, though she knew in her heart that no earthly remedy would ease the suffering her daughter was enduring. It wasn't just illness that plagued Adoma, it was the loss of something vital, something beyond the physical world. As the days passed, Adoma's condition worsened. She became weaker and weaker, unable to even sit up without assistance. Her once lustrous hair dulled, and her skin grew increasingly pale. The bright light that had once shone from her heart seemed to have dimmed, leaving a hollow shell of the vibrant, determined woman she had once been. At the same time, the kingdom of Nora began to face its own set of challenges. The once thriving land, protected by the spiritual presence that had washed over it, now felt exposed. The crops began to fail, the rivers grew sluggish, and the people, who had always known peace, began to stir with unease. The winds seemed to howl with an unrelenting fury, as though the spirits of the land themselves were in turmoil. King Akin, desperate to protect his people, called together his generals and advisors. He sent messengers to neighboring kingdoms, requesting alliances, but his mind was clouded with the knowledge that something was missing. There was no sense of balance, no underlying protection that had once been so strong. In her heart, Queen Isara knew that the kingdom's suffering and Adoma's illness were intertwined. The loss of the ring had severed the spiritual bond that had once connected the princess to her ethereal husband, and with it, the spiritual shield that had safeguarded their land. The balance had been broken, and if they didn't find the ring soon, both the kingdom and the life of her daughter would be lost forever. The queen, her heart heavy with the weight of the world, realized that they had no time to waste. The ring must be found, and it must be found now, before the darkness spread further, claiming both her daughter and the kingdom they had worked so hard to protect. The quest for the ring. Queen Isara stood in the royal hall, her mind racing with the weight of the decision she had made. With Adoma gravely ill and the kingdom in turmoil, there was no time left to waste. The spiritual husband's ring, the key to restoring balance and healing her daughter, had to be found. There was no other option. "I will go," Adoma had insisted, her voice weak but determined. "I can't sit here and do nothing. I must find it." Isara had hesitated at first, fearful of the dangers that lay ahead, but she knew her daughter's resolve. She would not rest until she had recovered the ring. The queen, her heart heavy with both fear and love, gathered a group of trusted warriors to accompany them on this perilous journey. It was not just the ring they sought, it was the survival of their kingdom and the restoration of Adoma's life. The journey would not be easy. Legend spoke of the distant lands where the ring was said to be lost, lands filled with dark forests, treacherous mountains, and ancient secrets. Only those with true courage and a pure heart would stand a chance of retrieving the sacred ring. And so, the group set out from the royal city of Nora, venturing into the unknown, where the land seemed to stretch endlessly and the air grew thick with danger. The first trial came quickly as they crossed into the great forest of Zera, known for its wild animals and spirits that guarded its ancient trees. The towering trees seemed to close in around them, casting long, creeping shadows over their path. Strange whispers filled the air, and eyes watched from the darkness. As the group pushed forward, the trees seemed to shift and move, confusing them and making them lose their way. Suddenly, from the thicket, a massive beast, its fur as black as midnight, burst forth, roaring fiercely. It was a creature of myth, a guardian of the forest, with eyes glowing like embers and teeth like jagged rocks. The warriors immediately drew their weapons, but the beast was too quick, its claws slashing the air with terrifying speed. Adoma, her strength diminished but her courage still strong, stepped forward, a calmness in her voice as she spoke to the beast. "We mean no harm, noble creature," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "We seek something that belongs to us, something that can save our land and our people." The beast paused, its fiery eyes studying her closely. For a long moment, there was silence, broken only by the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves. Then, the creature lowered its head, its eyes softening. It stepped back, allowing them to pass. The warriors, still shaken but relieved, followed Adoma as they moved forward. "We are tested by what we face," one of the warriors remarked, his voice reverent. "Our hearts must be pure if we are to succeed." Adoma nodded, her thoughts turning inward as they continued their journey. She could feel the connection to the spiritual husband pulsing faintly within her, but the path ahead was still unclear. She had to prove herself, not just to the world, but to herself. The days stretched into weeks, and their path became more dangerous. The group crossed rugged mountains, where the winds howled like banshees, threatening to blow them off the cliffs. The cold beat at their skin, and the steep, rocky terrain tested their endurance. Yet through it all, Adoma's resolve never wavered. She had one goal, and that goal was to find the ring, no matter what the cost. But it wasn't just the physical challenges that tested her. As they ventured deeper into the mountains, they encountered strange, ancient puzzles that seemed designed not to test their strength or skill, but their hearts. One night, while camping in a cave, Adoma awoke to find a puzzle etched into the stone wall before her. The puzzle was simple in appearance, but it presented a challenge like none she had ever faced before. There, in the cave, a voice echoed softly, reverberating off the walls. To proceed, you must answer truthfully, what is the greatest force in this world? What binds all things together? Adoma stared at the puzzle for a long moment. She knew the answer wasn't something that could be solved by logic alone. It had to be something deeper, something her heart truly understood. After a long silence, she spoke quietly, almost to herself. Love, she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of the truth. Love is the greatest force. It binds all things. It is the essence of life. The voice in the cave grew silent, and then the stone wall shifted, revealing a hidden passage that led further into the mountains. The challenge had been passed, not through intellect or force, but through understanding the deepest truth of all, love. Finally, after many trials and tribulations, they arrived at a hidden temple, nestled in the heart of the mountains. The temple was ancient, its stone walls covered in ivy, and its doors guarded by an aura of mystery. The air inside was thick with the weight of centuries, and the ground beneath them seemed to pulse with energy. At the center of the temple, a figure emerged, a spirit, ethereal and glowing with an otherworldly light. The spirit's presence was both awe-inspiring and intimidating, and the warriors stood at the ready, though they knew no weapon could harm such a being. The spirit spoke in a voice that was both soft and commanding. To reclaim the ring, you must prove your understanding of love. You seek the ring, but do you understand the sacrifice it demands? Do you understand what true love is? Adoma stepped forward, her heart heavy with the knowledge she had gained along the journey. She had faced physical challenges, solved ancient puzzles, and confronted her own fears, but it was this moment, this test of love, that truly tested her. She had thought she understood love before, but now she knew that it was more than a feeling. It was a choice. A sacrifice. A bond that transcended earthly desires. She took a deep breath and spoke from her heart. Love is not just about possession or desire. It is about giving without expectation, about understanding that true love comes from something greater than ourselves. It is not the love of a man, nor of a kingdom, it is the love that transcends time, that binds souls together across realms. I have learned that only through this kind of love can I fulfill my true self. Only through my connection to him, my spiritual husband, can I find the peace I seek. The spirit nodded slowly, its expression one of approval. You have passed the test, Adoma. You understand now what the ring represents. It is not a mere object of power, it is the key to your true self, and to the love that transcends all earthly desires. With a wave of its hand, the spirit summoned the ring from the depths of the temple. It glowed softly as it floated into Adoma's outstretched hands. She could feel the warmth of the ring as it settled on her finger once more, and with it, the powerful connection to her spiritual husband was restored. As the spirit faded away, its voice echoed softly in the temple. Remember, Adoma, true fulfillment comes not from the love of others, but from the love you share with your soul's counterpart. It is this love that will guide you in all things. Adoma looked down at the ring, feeling the weight of its power, not as a burden, but as a blessing. The journey had been long and difficult, but she had learned something invaluable. The ring was not just a symbol of protection, it was a reminder that no earthly love could ever fulfill her true self. Only the connection to her spiritual husband could complete her. With the ring safely in her possession, Adoma turned toward the path home, her heart full of peace, knowing that her journey was not over, it had only just begun. A new beginning. The journey had been long, and the trials had been many. But as Adoma returned to the kingdom of Nura, the air around her seemed different, as if the very earth was welcoming her back. The weight of the ring on her finger felt lighter now, not as a burden, but as a symbol of the wisdom and power she had gained. The once distant connection to her spiritual husband now felt alive within her, a force of guidance and strength that would forever accompany her. Queen Isara, who had waited anxiously for her daughter's return, rushed to meet her at the gates of the palace. The sight of Adoma standing tall, her eyes clear and her spirit radiant, filled the queen with pride and relief. She embraced her daughter warmly, feeling the transformation in the very air between them. "I see the change in you, my daughter," Queen Isara said softly, her voice full of admiration. "You have returned not just as the princess, but as the future leader we always knew you were meant to be." Adoma smiled, a serene calmness in her expression. "I have learned, mother. I have learned that true strength comes not from outside, but from within. The spiritual husband I sought was never a person, but a force that resides in all of us, one that connects us to our purpose and our destiny." As the two walked back into the palace, the people of the kingdom began to whisper, sensing the shift in their princess. They had always loved her, for she was not just beautiful but kind and wise beyond her years. Yet, there had been a shadow of uncertainty in her, one that had been cast by the expectations placed upon her. Now, that uncertainty was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence and a newfound understanding of her true calling. Over the following days, Adoma spent time with the kingdom's leaders, discussing the future of Nura. The external threats that had once loomed over the land now seemed less significant in the face of the kingdom's true strength, its unity. Adoma understood that to lead was not to dominate, but to guide with wisdom, compassion, and the strength that came from understanding the deeper forces of the universe. Her role as the future ruler of Nura was not to marry for political power or earthly reasons. Instead, she knew she was meant to lead with a pure heart, guided by the spiritual presence she had come to understand. She would marry not for the kingdom, but when her soul felt truly called to do so, when she met someone whose spirit resonated with her own. Until then, she would reign in peace, trusting that the spiritual husband who had watched over her since birth would continue to guide her. The kingdom flourished under Adoma's leadership. Where once there had been division, now there was harmony. Adoma's people felt the change, the deep peace that radiated from their ruler. She spoke of spiritual understanding, of love that transcended all things, and of the importance of connecting with the inner force that guided each person's destiny. Trade flourished, alliances were strengthened, and the kingdom of Nura became known far and wide not for its wealth or military strength, but for its wisdom and spiritual unity. Adoma's leadership was not harsh or domineering, but gentle and firm, as she used the wisdom gained from her journey to bring peace and prosperity to her people. One afternoon, Queen Isara sat beside her daughter in the royal gardens, watching as the sun began to set over the land. The kingdom seemed to glow in the fading light, and the people below could be seen going about their daily lives with smiles on their faces. "You have done it, Adoma," the queen said, her voice filled with pride. "You have become the ruler we always knew you would be. I am so proud of the woman you've become." Adoma looked at her mother, her heart full of gratitude. "It wasn't just me, mother. It was the love of the kingdom, the support of the people, and the guidance of the spirit that resides in all of us. I am just a vessel, a leader chosen to carry that energy forward." The queen nodded, understanding the depth of her daughter's words. It was a lesson she had always known, but now it was clear that Adoma had truly embraced her destiny, not just as a princess, but as a ruler with a heart full of wisdom and strength. And as the sun set, casting a golden glow over the kingdom, the people of Nura knew that their future was bright. Adoma had brought peace and unity to their land, guiding them not with force, but with love, wisdom, and a deep understanding of the forces that guided their world. She had found her true calling, and in doing so, had brought the kingdom of Nura into a new era of spiritual understanding and prosperity. Adoma stood at the palace balcony that evening, gazing out over the kingdom she had learned to lead. The ring on her finger glimmered softly in the twilight. In that moment, she felt the presence of her spiritual husband, the force that had guided her through every trial, surrounding her with warmth and peace. She had found what she had been searching for all along. Not a man to complete her, but a deeper understanding of the love and purpose that already existed within her. And in that love, she had found the strength to lead. A new beginning had begun, not just for her, but for the kingdom of Nura.